Okay, so let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Shirley Plant, and I am a nutrition coach and wellness advocate. And tonight on the webinar, we're talking about cravings. What are cravings? What do cravings mean? It seems easy enough to say, oh, I'm going to stop those cravings. I'm going to quit craving. But it seems every other day you end up on the couch eating that pint of ice cream or the bag of chips or pouring yourself another soda or Coke or Pepsi. And so why can't you shake those cravings? Well, there might be more to those cravings than you know. I truly believe that our bodies are always talking to us. They're constantly whispering to us, and it's just that we need to learn how to listen, because cravings are powerful and they are telling us a lot. Cravings mean many things. So welcome again for those of you that have just tuned in. I'll ask you just to mute yourself, and we are starting now with our webinar on cravings. So tonight, joining me is Dr. Emma Pollon MacLeod, naturopathic doctor at NutriChem Pharmacy and Biomedical Lab in Ottawa. Emma grew up with a dad who's a pharmacist. I would call him a very holistic pharmacist. And I think he helped her to always want to know what's going on in the body and getting to the root of things. And it really sparked in her this interest in naturopathic medicine. So I'm thrilled that she's here with me again tonight. For those of you that were on last month's webinar, Emma was here. We talked about the gut microbiome, which is just so important. And I just want to mention too that Emma has a special interest in women's health, including urinary and bladder infections. And tonight she's lending us her wonderful brain, and she's going to help us to understand cravings and how we can stop them from ruling our lives, because so many of us are ruled by our cravings. So hi, Emma. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me, Shirley.
Here we are again.
Here we are again. It feels like we just did this.
I know. But this is good. I love it because people are wanting this information, and everybody loved the webinar last month about our microbiome.
Yeah.
Let's talk about cravings. Maybe you want to start with explaining what is a craving, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think it's a great time of year to do this webinar discussion because there's so much food, and cravings are really, really at the top of our kind of thought process at all times. And what's coming up in all the research and with science lately is there's a shift from the thinking, from the classic paradigm of how we think of cravings. So, the old school mentality is more you just have to grit and bear cravings, and it's kind of a flaw in character if you're constantly craving food and you're struggling really, really hard to fight those sugar cravings or whatever cravings that you have. But the more evidence and the more research we do, we're just finding more links between what is actually behind cravings. So it's not just a character flaw. It doesn't mean people are weak because they're having cravings. It actually might be that your body, whether it's hormones or your microbiome or your nutritional status, is trying to tell you something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us, when we crave something, I want to talk about dehydration first, because for me, that was huge. I didn't realize that I was dehydrated. I was hungry, I was craving. And when I started to drink more water and more filtered water, I noticed a big difference. Can you talk a little bit about dehydration and really how much water do we need?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. So dehydration is kind of the first thing you always want to talk about, especially if people, they're discussing that they're having cravings, but they also get headaches, or maybe they also have cramping, like leg cramps at night, that sort of thing. So you really want to have those, that dehydration thought on your mind. When someone says to me that they're also having really bad sugar cravings, that's also a sign of dehydration. So I always suggest to people to kind of get up in the morning and start their day with water, with lemon in it. If they don't want to just start with plain water, lemon water is a really great, nice detoxifier way to kind of get those, salivary juices going in the morning. And it kind of sets up your body. Instead of, that huge spike of hunger in the morning, you've already kind of like settled it down a little bit.
That's a good idea. And how often and how much water should we drink? Is there a certain amount or?
Well, typically I always tell people to have some source of water or, even a herbal tea on them at all times as much as they can. So we want to be aiming for at least 1 to 2 liters a day. So that's at least, 6 cups of water per day. Because everything we do, we don't realize how much we're sweating. We're always excreting. So it's really important when we're, to fight that, because our body, sometimes if we're craving certain foods, it just means we're dehydrated and our body's trying to get that water content from the food.
Right. And what I had to do actually in the beginning was I had to measure out water. And what I did is I actually put it in containers. I had some in the fridge and I had it out, because if it wasn't out and I got busy at work or whatever, I wasn't drinking. So I almost had to see it. So to me, that really is a good tip, to pour the amount of water that you want to drink during your day, and start that way, because for me, it was really hard to drink water. I didn't like the taste of it. And I love your tip of putting some lemon in the morning. That's so good to do first thing in the morning. For sure, it gets your liver going. And sometimes you're not hungry in the morning. And so it's a great way to get things started.
Exactly. And having a water bottle or something on you, it's really hard if you don't have any way of getting water, to drink during the day. So it's really important to kind of cover that before your day starts, so you're not playing catch up all day long.
Exactly, because that's what I would do. And then I'd be really thirsty at night and I'd drink all night, and then I'd be up peeing all night. So do it. My girlfriend drinks in the shower in the morning. When she gets up and she has her shower, she has her water bottle there and she's drinking while she has a shower.
Well, whatever you want to do.
So let's talk about cravings and deficiencies, because I think sometimes cravings can mean that we're deficient in certain minerals and vitamins.
Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of one way. That's a way, historically and evolutionarily, that's a way for our body to kind of guide us in the direction of what we should or shouldn't be eating. When someone's craves salt. So I know we talk a lot about sugar cravings, but there are a lot of people who have huge salt cravings. And when someone says that they're craving salt a lot, I immediately think of the adrenal glands, because our body is really, really good at preserving sodium, so what's in salt. So if our adrenal glands are burnt out and they're not working as well, they're so tired of producing cortisol because we're all stressed out, then it's not producing enough of that salt preserving hormone. So it's trying to get us to reach for the salt in our diet. So that's when I think of kind of adrenal. So that's often people who are really burnt out. Ooh, they're having what happened here?
Just a second here. I'm not too sure.
I think this happened last time.
I was going to say, and I don't know why this happens. There we go. Oh, it just pops on, pops off. The joys of being live.
Yeah, exactly.
So as you were saying, sodium and salt.
Yeah, so, in that sort of case, we want to work on the adrenals. We want to work on nourishing, giving adaptogens, that sort of thing, to help cope with the stress. You're not burning your adrenals out. And then instead of making the hormones to maintain the salt balance, you're grabbing snacks to get that sodium into your body.
Yeah, and I noticed that too, that when my body was low in sodium, that's when I was craving those salty chips. And what I did instead was I would cut myself a cucumber and put some Himalayan sea salt on that. And I would eat that first. And then I would just sort of say, okay, am I still craving those chips? And I wasn't. And so to me, that was the true link that, yes, my body needed some sodium.
For sure. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with putting some salt, some sea salt on your food. If you're cutting down a lot on processed food, then it's okay to add a little bit of salt here and there if your body needs it. Sodium's super important. But just to kind of recognize, is it something, once you've had that intake, like you said, is that enough? Or do you need to keep indulging and indulging?
And I guess if you are still craving, as you were talking about our adrenals, then what would someone then want to do to make sure that their adrenals are functioning properly?
Yeah, so that's something that, we could look at in the blood. You can look at cortisol levels, did the daily cortisol spikes. We can also see if they're having other sort of hormonal issues in terms of like progesterone, and that sort of thing is highly linked to cortisol as well. So I would recommend usually just looking at either serum testing for cortisol, which is a really great measurement of adrenal function, or blood levels as well.
So let's go to sweets and sugar. I mean, because I think that's sort of the most popular craving. I mean, and yet there's cravings for everything. I mean, I have friends that their children crave dirt and they eat dirt, and I'm guessing that they're low in minerals if they're eating dirt.
Yeah, exactly. That's called pica. It has a medical name for it, right? So you're craving those more elemental substances, then you're usually low in iron or zinc or copper or that sort of thing, because those are found in high amounts in soil.
But let's talk sugar. So I think you're probably going to want to talk about some deficiencies, maybe chromium, but let's talk about that good old gut bacteria.
Yes. Yeah. This is where it becomes really, really interesting, because the research is really, really new in this area, and we're just uncovering every day. It seems like there's more and more studies coming out that are making all sorts of links to our microbiome and our gut and how it's helping, dictate our cravings. So I actually was just reading a study this morning on how bacteria, they looked at, so for sugar cravings, they looked at the urinary metabolites of gut bacteria in people who are chocoholics, like who absolutely love chocolate, versus people who are indifferent to chocolate. Every once in a while you come across someone who's like, I don't care at all for chocolate or sweets. I have no interest in it. So they looked at the urinary metabolites and compared them for the bacterial breakdown of both of those people, and they were completely different.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's really interesting. And they ate the same diet. They put them on the same diet for, I think they did about 3 weeks or something. And when they looked at the microbiome content, it was completely different.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, there's different hypotheses where, they discuss the different bacteria in your microbiome. What they do is they can send signals, so they actually release hormones that are very either, exactly like the ones we release. They release serotonin and dopamine, but they can also release ones that are very, very similar to our hunger and satiety hormones. So they can actually give out signals that you're not full when you might feel full. So it's, getting you to keep eating and eating and feeding that certain bacteria. And they'll get you to release they'll release neurotransmitters to make you crave the foods that they do the best on.
So really, it's your gut bacteria that's craving. It's not, It's not me.
Exactly.
It's the little
critters. They're almost like dictating what you are putting in your mouth, basically. It's really, really interesting.
And so then I guess, do you want to talk a little bit about how you would change because if your gut bacteria is the one that's craving, we have to change our gut bacteria, don't we? Because otherwise we're going to keep craving. We can't just say in our mind, okay, stop,
Exactly.
If that gut bacteria has got that force,
Yeah, exactly. So, so what they're doing is they're craving certain foods. So what we can do is, first you can assess to see if there's, so usually the microbes that are forcing people, or they're releasing certain chemicals to make people crave the starchy carbohydrates or the sugars, are usually the more pathogenic, so non-favorable bacteria. So it's rarely, you have the good lactobacillus and bifidobacteria. They're not releasing those, hormones that are making you crave those really, really sugary foods. So that's one thing. So you do want to, make sure that you're not having any pathogenic bacteria in there, right? Because we don't want to just assume that it's everybody's microbiome that is causing their cravings. It could be contributing for sure, but it also could be, a whole bunch of other things as well, like you were saying. So for the microbiome specifically, you can measure urinary metabolites of certain bugs, which is what we do with one of our tests at NutriChem in the lab, the body chemistry balancing test. And then what we want to do is usually you just want to really pack in really good, healthy bacteria. So the good, high dose strains that are found in healthy guts. And the third step really is providing prebiotics. So we want to provide really, really good quality food sources for the good bacteria, rather than providing the bad food sources that are feeding the bad bacteria. So fiber, really that sort of thing.
So let's talk about some of the prebiotics. So we talked earlier about that we want to hydrate, we want to drink lots of water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And to change our gut bacteria, we want these really good probiotics and prebiotics. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll start with the prebiotics, because if anyone has, even if they have just a little bit of good bacteria in them, we want to make sure we're feeding that good bacteria. And by feeding the good bacteria, not only are you raising the concentration of the good bacteria, but those ones are also going to outcompete and decrease the bad ones. So prebiotics are really important. So what a prebiotic is, it's not live bacteria, it's a food source for the good bacteria. So things that we as humans can't digest travels through our intestinal, our digestive tract to the bacteria, and they actually feed on it and release good, substances for us. So fiber. So there's different types of fiber that are really, really good prebiotics. So there's inulin is one of them, an indigestible probiotic. You can also find food sources for good fibers are in, foods like Brussels sprouts and asparagus and, cabbage, those sorts of foods.
And fermented foods too, like.
Yeah, so fermented foods are really good source of prebiotics, but they actually also have they're actually full of live bacteria as well. So fermented foods are kind of the beauty of both of them. So sauerkraut, I just had some unpasteurized sauerkraut with dinner, but that is a huge source of prebiotics and probiotics. So those sorts of things are really, really great to include in your diet as well. So, sauerkraut, kombucha, kefir, that sort of thing.
Kimchi, for those of us that like the spicy.
Oh yeah, I love kimchi. Miso, lots of more cultured foods.
Right, exactly. And really, as you said, it's feeding the good bacteria. So we don't want to continue to feed the bad bacteria. And by doing that, it's when we eat the processed foods, when we eat those trans fats and our packaged foods and our sugary foods and our takeout, our fast foods, packaged, those are really what I guess is feeding that bad bacteria, which is then in turning making us crave.
Exactly.
Like a vicious circle, isn't it?
It is. It's a very vicious circle, and it's really, really difficult to break, because every time, you re-indulge, it kind of resets the cycle. So what we like to do, what we normally do with patients at NutriChem is we do a 30-day gut makeover protocol. And, people kind of freak out when they hear it. They're like, 30 days, because we cut out all sugar, all starches, all grains, all legumes even, because those are still starchy carbohydrate, like those are still high in sugar.
Right, yeah, they turn to sugar in the body.
Exactly, all dairy, alcohol, that sort of thing. So basically a very paleo style diet. And we find, so and the reason to do it isn't to lose, the immediate effect isn't to lose weight, but it's actually to shift that microbiome, to kill off the bad and really, really support the good. Because you're starving out the bad ones by not taking in those sugar and carbs and processed foods. But at the same time, because you still have to eat food, people's vegetable and fiber consumption usually skyrockets. And then we don't limit that at all. There's no restrictions in terms of fruit or vegetable intake.
And it's interesting, my husband and I recently did the 30-day challenge. And for me, it wasn't difficult because I eat a very paleo type of diet anyway, but it was more so for my husband. And it was interesting because we were trying to change his microbiome and have it to be more healthy. And, he said, oh, this is going to be really difficult. And it really wasn't, because you're just changing your mindset to eat real food. Mm-hmm. So you're eating lots of vegetables, healthy meats, fishes, whatever. You're just cutting out those packaged things, those quick things, but you're eating real food. And when you plan, it's not that difficult to eat real food. And he did. He lost weight. I mean, he didn't think he was going to lose weight, but he did lose weight. So, that was a great side effect.
Yeah, side effect.
From eating real food. Go figure. I mean, it's not dieting. It's just eating real food.
Exactly. And often patients, they come back, and after the 30 days, I've never had one patient come back and say that they binged on the next day. Yeah. They don't experience those crazy cravings, or if they do, they've managed for 30 days to kind of observe what a craving feels like and to actually go without indulging in that food. So sometimes they find they can recognize, okay, I want to indulge in a little bit, but now I don't need to continue indulging in that food.
Right. And when you change your bacteria, I mean, really, the cravings, they go away. It's huge. It's mind-boggling.
Exactly. I did it myself. I think 2 months ago that I did the 30-day diet as well, and I haven't hardly eaten any sugar since.
Yeah, because you just don't want it. You just don't crave it. And then when you do eat it, you find it so sweet.
It's so sweet.
Yeah.
It's almost, you can hardly take it in at all. You appreciate a tiny little bit, and then you can kind of stay away.
I do want to mention too, though, that I think sometimes when people are craving sweet, they need sleep. They're tired because, when we eat something sweet, it gives us that little boost in energy. And so a lot of times I'll say to people, are you getting enough sleep? Are your cravings because you're exhausted, or you're just not getting some good quality sleep? So again, and at this time of year, we're busy, we're partying, everybody's trying to do everything. Come back and make sure you are getting good quality sleep. And then that will help with your cravings too, for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd like to chat a little bit about the emotional part of cravings, because I think that's pretty big. And sometimes when people crave, it may not be that they're craving food, but that food is filling a void. Are you lonely? Are you missing something? Are you missing love from your life? Or it could be many things. And so I would just ask people to check in and just see what is missing from your life. And is that part of your cravings, that's why you're turning to something? Or especially at this time of year, maybe you're craving those sugar cookies because it reminds you of being in the kitchen when you were young with your mom and she made sugar cookies. And so again, it's just tuning into your body, because when I first started this webinar, I said, I truly believe our bodies are brilliant and they're talking to us all the time. It's just, we weren't taught to tune in. And certainly for me, it was learning how to tune into my body and listen to it that then helped me to heal my body, because I just wasn't taught. And I think a lot of us will see the odd time in a park, a little child falls down and skins their knees, and we're so quick to say, "Oh, you're okay," when maybe they're not. Maybe they just need to get in tune and sort of say, "Oh, I'm not okay." Or maybe they are. But again, it's just getting in tune. And those of you that know me really well know that I love Louise Hay, the creator of Hay House Publishers. And she has this little thing that I just wanted to say, that if you're craving sugar, could it be that you're craving joy in your life? So if you're craving sugar, I would ask you, are you blocking joy from your life or any sweetness? So let's go over, Emma, the suggestions and tips that we've got for everybody for this webinar and how we can eliminate the cravings. I guess maybe I'll start out and I'll just say, at the first sign of a craving, I'd ask you to sit quietly and ask your body what it really needs. Does it need kindness? Are you thirsty? We talked about that at the very beginning. Dr. Emma said, we need to hydrate our bodies. So are you thirsty? Maybe have a glass of water first. Or are you feeling lonely? Are you rushing to get out of the house? How much protein have you eaten in the day? Maybe, Emma, you want to talk a little bit about how much protein we need to eat, because I know if we're not getting enough protein, a lot of times we crave, don't we?
Oh yeah, for sure. So a huge component, something that we definitely need to talk about is, especially if you're craving sugar, is blood sugar and insulin.
Right. Yeah.
Because especially this time of year, there's so many parties and there's a lot going on that we have these massive sugar dosages, and then our body releases a huge amount of insulin, which makes our cells take up all the sugar in our blood, and then we bottom out, we crash. That's when we start to get sleepy, we get tired, and we get a crazy craving because our body is like, okay, it's time for another sugar hit. It's, it's a drug.
That's right. It's just going up and down.
It's that up and down. So, and especially if you are eating things like chocolate, simple carbohydrates, things that immediately turn to glucose in the body, you're just having these waves, spikes and crashes, and all you're going to keep doing is reaching for more and more sugar. So one of the ways that we always, handle that, just smooth out the line rather than these big jagged drop-offs, is making sure you're getting a lot of protein with your meal. So if you are going to have some sort of, if you are going to have some sort of a sugary snack, then include a protein or a fat with it to smooth out that, that spike, because your body's not going to release that huge amount of insulin if there's protein in it to kind of curve that blood sugar level.
And so can you recommend, would you say nuts? Would you, the healthy fats, could you recommend a few?
Yes, for sure. So I always tell, we do always recommend a smoothie in the morning that has protein in it, because a lot of people don't have time in the morning to get protein, and the breakfast is kind of what sets you up for your day. So if you're eating a starchy breakfast, you're most likely going to crash and have that kind of 11 o'clock sugar craving, and then you eat sugar, and then you have lunch, and then you're really getting tired, so then you get another snack, another sweet in the afternoon. So protein in the morning. So, if you eat eggs, that's totally fine, because that's a really good source of protein. But if you don't, I suggest something with at least 20 grams of protein in the morning. So you can do that, from a protein, like a whey protein, a hemp protein. If you have sensitivities, there's rice protein, that sort of thing. And then I also tell people to include a really good healthy fat. And that is really going to enhance that satiety, that feeling of fullness. Because some people say, well, I do have smoothies, but I'm hungry after a little bit. If you add fat into that smoothie, then you're not going to be hungry. So things like coconut oil is a really, really good for kind of making you feel really, really full, and it's not going to cause any sort of blood sugar spike. almonds, so many nuts and seeds are a really good source of healthy fat. I tell people to add avocado as well to their smoothie. Olive oil is also a really great healthy fat. So even, when we talk, people are kind of afraid of fats, but now the word healthy fats is kind of coming back in. People aren't as afraid of it anymore. So it's making its comeback finally.
Finally, healthy fats, exactly. And what we mean by the healthy fats is what Emma said, the coconut milk, the coconut oil, the nuts, the seeds, the hemp seed. We don't want those, the vegetable oils that, the trans fats, those we don't want. But certainly for me, when I switched that and introduced an avocado, coconut milk in the morning, nut butters in the morning. Wow, what a difference. I used to get that slump in the mid-morning and now I don't at all. So important. Thank you for sharing that we need healthy protein in the morning, healthy fat in the morning. That helped my cravings and my sugar dips that I always got in mid-morning and mid-afternoon. That's what helped me for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing for people to experience, really, because, when you do tell them a 30-day concrete number and people really want to stick to it, they now have to try new things. So they're eating more fats and more protein, and they're expecting those crashes and those cravings to come on, and they just don't come on. And then they don't reach for the next snack. So it's really amazing to see people experience, these huge shifts once they do have these diet changes and microbiome shifts and everything.
And I know it's hard for some people because I think they're so used to the processed foods and the sugar that certainly for me, I really didn't crave an avocado or I really didn't crave nut butter. But slowly over time, your taste buds do change. And I'm the first one. I was a sugarholic. And I thought, I don't like green things. But you know what? Now, actually, Emma, I crave the green things. I would much rather have an avocado with olive oil and sea salt than a brownie. And if you told me that 15 years ago, I would have said, yeah, you're crazy.
Yeah, always. We get that a lot. And it's about the palate. Your palate does have to change, and it takes work. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, exactly.
Sometimes. And that's why I'm always for moderation. I'm never, you're never allowed to eat sugar again in your life. I think that's completely unreasonable. But I do think it's healthy to have, a set amount of days just to give yourself a chance to overcome that addiction that we have. And people have legitimate addictions. Like, it's legitimate. Your body is dependent on this sugar hit. And sometimes we kind of brush that off. But these are major cravings. So it's really important to have strategies for people to kind of manage them as they come. And then through time, they do decrease.
And as you mentioned, having that strategy that you start your morning off right, that you make sure you're not getting dips in your blood sugar throughout the day, and, getting perhaps a gut bacteria test done, because you want to know, is it your bacteria? Is it your gut bacteria that is doing the craving? So that's really a huge tip, isn't it? To find out whether your gut bacteria is healthy, unhealthy, making you crave. Are you needing certain minerals and vitamins? So that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And we also actually look at the metabolites of neurotransmitters. So the craving so dopamine, what's released, the pleasure hormone. When you eat sugar, we release dopamine. So maybe you're depleted, maybe you have low dopamine. So when you're constantly craving sugar to get those releases, because it's a pleasure neurotransmitter, it's that feeling of pleasure. That's how addictions happen. They all revolve around dopamine. And there's actually, again, bringing everything back to the microbiome, some gut bacteria release dopamine and serotonin, which is a sugar craving hormone. So we do, as well, when we see people that are on these kind of cycles and they have low levels of these metabolites, we can help support them with, we give the precursors of dopamine. So we give tyrosine, we give 5-HTP to kind of stabilize levels, especially that's for people who are having really severe cravings, and the 30-day with like a 30-day plan just isn't even an option for them. So that's when we give kind of those more mood stabilizing, so they're not having insane withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah, because that would be just too much to take, too much to overcome. You need that, you need those amino acids or whatever you're missing to be able to stop eating sugar, drinking the Coke, whatever it might be, or as you say, needing the sodium because you're craving those chips or whatever.
Exactly. So we don't just tell people, okay, 30 days, good luck. We're supporting the microbiome to diminish those cravings. We're giving, the precursors, the neurotransmitters to kind of stabilize that. We're giving protein to maintain blood sugar. So we're really setting you up to be able to do the 30 days without really, really struggling. And once you've done that, then you have the tools to kind of get, to be able to even observe a craving. Because it's really easy to say, it's easy kind of for us, we've been on these sort of health, we've
done it. So
we've done it. So
we almost have to recognize that we are craving.
Yeah. Exactly. So exactly. And sometimes you kind of need to get rid of all the other cute things that are going on. And once that's all settled, then people can start to be mindful more about their cravings, and they can start to observe the emotional aspect of it.
Right. And as we mentioned, important to stay hydrated during this season. We're in winter, it's dry, the heat is on, we want to stay hydrated. And I think when you're out at parties and the festive season, there tends to be more, I will say, unhealthy foods than healthy. And so if you can incorporate healthy foods amongst those festive foods, as you said, Emma, we're not saying no more sugar, no more nothing, especially at this time of year. But for me, sometimes before I go out to a party, I will eat half an avocado or an avocado, because to me, that's giving me some healthy fat. So then when I go to that party and I see all the chocolates and the cookies and everything, I'm not craving them nearly as much. I may just have one because I want to sample and it's fun.
Yeah.
But I'm not, and that's the other thing, I'm not starving when I get to the party, because that's huge too.
That's never a good, holiday parties, never a good idea to be starving going into it. I always suggest to people to eat a good protein, a good fat before, so you're not unleashed on all, and there's rarely any kind of good quality protein or really healthy fats, rarely at these sort of gatherings. So yes, great idea for sure.
And I always say, take something healthy. I mean, that's what I always do. I take something healthy, or make a healthy drink or something fun. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, and people, it's becoming a lot more popular. People are more open to healthy foods. There are a lot of gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free options becoming available. So I think the more people are okay with bringing these healthy options, it's just going to sort of hopefully try to change these trends that we have. We have to go off the rails once, every holiday season.
So we've shared some tips with you about cravings. I'd love to open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions for Dr. Emma, you can either raise your hand, or at the bottom, there's a little chat icon, and you can type in your questions there, because some people sometimes are shy, and I'm happy to read the questions to Emma if you have any questions that you want to ask her or me about your cravings, or anything really related to tonight's webinar. I'd love to invite people, if you're not already on my newsletter, jump on the newsletter. You can go to deliciousalternatives.com and get on the newsletter. I send out healthy recipes every month, so that'll help you in your transition when you're saying, I don't know what to eat, I don't know what to make, I don't know what to do in my kitchen. We make it easy. I make it easy and simple. So for sure, go on over to Delicious Alternatives and sign up for my free newsletter. So let's see, we've got some questions coming in. Let's see what we've got here. Okay. So Sophie writes, I get a lot more cravings around my period. Is this normal, and what can I do to reduce my sugar intake at this time and control those cravings? Great question, Sophie.
Yeah, great question. So that's really common. So it's definitely normal. There's a huge hormonal component to cravings as well. So that kind of plays into the progesterone, where I sort of alluded to that. So there's a lot of research, with animal studies where they look at cravings and they look at smoking cessation. So when people are trying to quit smoking, and it's always harder to do right around menstruation when progesterone is the lowest. Ooh, I don't know what happened there.
Went again.
Again.
I wonder if it'll pop back. It's all right, everybody's still there.
Okay. So for you, what I would suggest again is, you really want to make sure you're maintaining a lot of protein and you're supporting your adrenals in that time, because those are kind of the building blocks of progesterone. So you're going to help normalize those levels. And I'd also suggest magnesium is really, really important for managing craving, especially sugar cravings around the period.
Okay, great. Good advice. Any other questions for Dr. Emma before we end our webinar? I don't think I see any here. And of course, I am recording, so we'll send out this recording to those that are on my newsletter. Will get this recording. I'll also post it on the Facebook page too. I don't think I see any other questions in the chat. No, okie doke. Well, I certainly thank you, Emma, for being here tonight and sharing your knowledge with everybody about cravings. I hope this has helped everybody. As always, I ask you to send me your requests. I love doing these webinars, and let me know what you would like to hear on what subject would help you. Oh, we have another question. Let's just see here. Oh, no, it was just a thank you so much. That's very nice. Thank you. You're a great webinar. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. So again, thank you everybody for being here. I look forward to chatting with all of you next month. Happy holidays. And
there's one more. I think maybe.
Okay, maybe we'll just check here and see.
Something popped up, yeah.
Let's see, I get a lot of cravings. Oh, yes, okay. I eat breakfast at 5 a.m. and then eat supper about 6:30. What is the best food to eat? Oh, so you're going a long stretch. That's a long stretch.
What is the best? Oh, yeah, so you can always, if you're up at 5:30 in the morning and you're eating dinner at 6:30, is that okay?
Yeah, up at 5 and then eat supper at 6:30. So I don't know if it's that you can't have lunch, you don't have lunch. I'll let Emma respond. That's a long way to go.
Yeah, that's definitely a long day. So again, that's when having things like protein on you, nuts, seeds, nut butters, fruit like apples and nut butter is a really great snack to have with you. That's really going to keep you full for a long time. Throwing a tablespoon of coconut oil in your smoothie in the morning if you are having a smoothie, getting those healthy fats in as much as you can. And you don't need to worry about gaining weight with fat. Good fats don't make you fat. It's sugar. Sugar is the enemy right now.
Exactly. And processed foods. How much magnesium should I take a day? Is 200 milligrams in morning and 200 milligrams at night too much? That's what I've been doing because I keep reading that magnesium is so important. Yeah, it is important.
Yeah, magnesium is super important. So 200 milligrams twice a day is not too much. I just would want to make sure that you're taking a good form of magnesium. There's multiple different forms of magnesium. Some of them, the classic milk, magnesium oxide, that sort of thing, that's not absorbed. So it's just, if you take it, it basically acts like a laxative. So it's just going to make your stools really loose, and it's going to make you run to the washroom a lot. So I'd suggest to make sure you're taking a nice, like a magnesium glycinate, which is a really highly absorbable form. And it's really good because the glycine actually is an amino acid, but it also acts as a neurotransmitter. So it's very calming. It's very inhibitory. So that's where it comes into play in terms of cravings as well.
That's good to know. Okay, so let's see. I think that's the last question. Let's see. Yeah, she takes glycinate, so that's good.
Yeah, so 200 milligrams twice a day is fine.
Good.
Yeah, as long as your stools aren't loose, your body will tell you if you're having too much magnesium.
So if your bowels get really loose, then that's
Then,
enough.
then you can back off a little. Yeah.
Back off a little, exactly. Well, great. Thank you again, Emma. Thank you, everybody, for being here. See you next time.
Thank you for having me. I'll see you next time.
Okay. Bye, everybody.